So I will start with explaining in brief the Kyoto Protocol. So this protocol set the foundation for the first emission trading scheme between nations. But before the Kyoto Protocol, let's refresh our memory. And back in 1992, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted. And in this convention, the ultimate objective was to stabilize concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic climate change. And to do so, the convention divided countries into two groups. They divided it into non-Annex 1 countries, which are basically the developing countries, and Annex 1 parties, which are countries like, for instance, Ukraine, Japan, Canada, or EU member states. And after the convention was adopted, the parties met several times. And for instance, they met for the first time in Berlin in 1995, and there they realized that the objectives of the convention were really too vague, and that they needed to add a protocol to the convention if they wanted it to work properly. And 2 years and a half later, we had the Kyoto Protocol, where for the first time we had a target. So the target for the Kyoto Protocol is on average 5.2% reduction for the period 2008-2012 in comparison with 1990. So if we have a look at the target for different countries, we see that, for instance, EU member states have to decrease their emission by 8%, while countries like Australia or Norway can increase them. We have to note when we see this figure that it really depends on the context. So, for instance, for a country like Australia, limiting its increase by 8% is a real challenge, and maybe more difficult than for some EU countries to cut their emission by 5 or 6 or 8%. If we go back to the Kyoto Protocol, we see that we often speak about CO2, but in fact it's not only CO2 which is taken into account, but it's 6 gases or family of gases. So we have CO2, but we have also methane, nitrous oxide, HFC and PFC, and SF6. All these gases are converted into CO2 using the global warming potential defined by the IPCC. And the figures that are used come from the Kyoto Protocol itself, and so they are the figures that were defined in the second assessment report by the IPCC. Now we are at the fourth one, and so all these figures will be updated after Copenhagen. So, for instance, for methane, the new figure will be 25 after Copenhagen if we get an agreement there. So we are still working with the whole convention factors in the IPCC. If we look at the map of the Kyoto Protocol, we can see that it's truly a global protocol. The only major country which is not part of the protocol is the United States of America. Next to the trading, one of the major features of the Kyoto Protocol is that they define several project-based mechanisms. And so basically there are two mechanisms. There is the CDM and the JI. There were very few JI projects developed so far, and so I'm going to give a few words on the clean development mechanism. Through a CDM project, an Annex 1 party or a company from an Annex 1 party, so a company, for instance, in France or in Sweden, can invest in a non-Annex 1 party, for instance, going to China or South Africa, for the purpose of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, along with the promotion of sustainability principles in developing countries. For every ton of CO2 reduced or absorbed through the project, the investor will receive a certified emission reduction. And the calculation of this emission is based on comparison with a baseline scenario. That's what you can see on this figure on slide number 5. So at the start of the project, your emission were following a trend, which is defined as a business as usual scenario. And you implement your project, for instance, you do some energy efficiency projects or you install a windmill, and then you see your emission decreasing. And that's the difference between business as usual and the real emission after the implementation of the project that gives you right to a certified emission reduction per carbon credit. If we look at the map of the CDM, we see that it varies unfairly very uneven. So there are quite many criticisms due to the geographical and technological spread and some concern also about additionality of some projects. But we see that projects are mainly concentrated in 3 countries, China, India, and Brazil. Together, they account for almost more than 70% of the total credit that will be generated through the CDM. We don't see it on this map, but projects are also concentrated in the most profitable activities. So we have, for instance, many HFC destruction projects. And economically and environmentally, this is probably desirable and it's the foundation for the establishment of an emission market. But the CDM was also intended to deliver on the third and far less tangible pillar of sustainable development. So in other words, CDM should also improve the social condition in local communities. And that's probably one big issue when we see that the majority of the projects developed comes from the destruction of FKZs or large lands, where you have very little added value for local communities. But on the positive side, if we look at projects developing energy like small hydropower or wind farms or waste recycling or even recovery of pH from or methane, there we can see some projects which really improve the social conditions of the people living around the site. So projects which deliver on the